By the way, these people are very openly, unapologetically, and deliberately showcasing that they are Jewish. Very little distinctions are being made, very little commentaries being made about that fact. And I have to assume that a certain point is got to be deliberate. They barely mentioned it in the beginning, where they were like, oh yeah, Jewish Voice for Peace is the group. And then that's it.
Pro-Palestinian equals pro-Hamas. Arabs that is often used, and it was used in Mahmoud's case. Khalil's.
Why did you say the quiet part out loud, bro? What the? He's like, yeah, normally we would be like, if they're Arabs, they love Al-Qaeda, you know, but they're Jews, so we can't say that. My God, I feel so bad for you, sir. Jesus Christ. We're going to be talking about the Jewish protesters arrested after storming Trump Tower.
Nearly 100 people after
Let's take a
crowd
look.
of protesters stormed the lobby of Trump Tower in New York. Release of Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist, a graduate student at NYU, or rather at Columbia University. He is at risk of being deported after he helped lead protests against the war in Gaza at the university last year. Homeland Security officials have accused Khalil of being a Hamas sympathizer.
We spoke to one of the organizers of Jewish Voice for Peace about why they wanted to come out here. And to them, they said they did not want the First Amendment entrenched on, which is what they believe Khalil was doing over the course of leading some of the protests we saw out of Columbia University. But also they wanted to show solidarity from the Jewish people as well. Those were the words that one of the organizers told me as we spoke to her, as some of her protesters were being loaded onto these buses. There were no violent incidents in regards to the arrest themselves. Once they were taken into police custody, there did not seem to be any resistance. We did not hear of any resistance.
This is awesome, and it's a good thing. Civil disobedience and getting arrested, especially for groups like Jewish Voice for Peace, is an incredibly important tactic. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think that they are incredibly brave for putting their bodies on the line like this and using their privilege. The reason why I say that is because a lot of this conversation in the Western world revolves around how this is a Muslim versus Jew situation. This kind of stuff gets reported on by mainstream news, and it educates people who are maybe living in the rest of the country, maybe not around Jews, for example, that this is not actually a Jew versus Muslim situation at all, and that it's not like a scary terrorist that was arrested in this process. It reinforces that reality that this is about people's collective conscience and has nothing to do with like their ethnic background.
Joining us now, CNN senior national security analyst Juliette Kayyem. So Juliette, over 120 people entering Trump Tower, a law enforcement official telling CNN at the height of this. Tell us a little bit about that security setup there now that it's not Trump's official residence.
Yeah, so I'm surprised by this. I would have assumed that just given the public nature of Trump's commercial activities, it would be very difficult to have 100 people come. It was clearly a secretively planned protest, and they were arrested.
I knew it was going to happen. May or may not know some people that were there and may or may not gotten arrested. Wasn't that big of a secret. But, you know, she's right. It was planned ahead of time. Deliberately.
And this is the interesting thing about Trump, without getting into whether he should or shouldn't do it. And we saw this with Elon Musk with the Teslas, because they've broken down the distinction between their public roles and their private commercialization, monetization rules. You are seeing these protests touch them in their commercial space. We saw this with Elon Musk and attacks on Tesla, as well as now this protest. Donald Trump cannot close down Trump Tower. It's a commercial space. It's a residential space. And so they are sort of dealing with, I think, in some ways, the consequences of that merger of monetization and policy and the First Amendment.
So these arrests, charging people with obstructing government administration.
By the way, these people are very openly, unapologetically, and deliberately showcasing that they are Jewish. Very little distinctions are being made, very little commentaries being made about that fact. And I have to assume that a certain point is got to be deliberate. They barely mentioned it in the beginning, where they were like, oh yeah, Jewish Voice for Peace is the group. And then that's it. Them being Jewish is a part of this process, is a part of this protest. It is like an important part of the protest. That's why it's called Jewish Voice for Peace. You know what I mean? That's why they put it on their signage. And it's not because of Jewish exceptionalism or whatever. It's because in order to break through the pre-established narratives surrounding Islamophobia, surrounding the way to normalize or obfuscate the truth about Israel by claiming that it's directly tied and associated with Judaism around the world, and certainly in America, is by doing shit like this.
The interesting thing about this is this was organized by a Jewish group. So the narrative of, well, sort of pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian equals pro-Hamas Arabs that is often used, and it was used in Mahmoud's case. Khalil's.
Why don't you say the quiet part out loud, bro? What the? She's like, yeah, normally we would be like, if they're Arabs, they love Al Qaeda, but they're Jews, so we can't say that. That's insane. Normally we'd be like, hey, they love Hamas. Look at these dirty Arabs, they love Hamas. But when they're Jews, we can't say that. It makes it harder to say that. Oh my Lord. Ay, ay, ay. What a an insane moment of honesty right there.
Case is harder to make against Jewish organizations. I have no doubt that that's why they did it, because there's great diversity within the Jewish American population about what's going on, divisions amongst them, and I think that's a very important part of this narrative of who it was organized by and why.
We are here.
If they mention that these people are Jewish at all on Fox News, they will do my favorite thing that I love seeing, which is, I call it Gentile confidence, where a bunch of the most Christian looking motherfuckers will sit there and be like, yeah, these Jews are bad. They're not real Jews, actually. We should put them in concentration camps, actually. And it's like the most golden retriever looking ass blonde lady you've ever seen in your life saying that. And you're like, how does this not ring any alarm bells? You're not Jewish. Just like a shocking display of overt anti-Semitism. If they mentioned that the group's called Jewish Voice for Peace at all.
Protesting against the defamation and deprivation of Mahmoud by Donald Trump. I don't really understand what Donald Trump's intentions are, and I won't speak for them, but I will say that the impact is causing a lot of harm to people who are asking for peace.
So there's that. Katie Pavlich joins us with her reaction. But first, let's get an update from the New York City Police, from the chief of the department, John Schell. Chief, good to have you here today. Do you have any idea who this group is, or who pays for these T-shirts, who organized it all? Any idea?
Yeah, we're well versed in this group. I don't want to give them any advertisement. We've dealt with them before. We know what their MO is, if you will. And again, I just can't stress enough.
Just say their name, bro. Why won't you say it? Just say the name of the group. What is it? You're very familiar with them, huh? I doubt that you wouldn't be openly talking about it if it was like, I don't know, Arab Muslims for Peace or some shit. You'd be like, yeah, I'll say it. It's Hamas. It's Hamas. That's right. These guys love Hamas.
That in 2 hours we got this cleared up. 98 people. We had to carry people up escalators and walk them out. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but our training and our
oh my God. I feel so bad for you, sir. Jesus Christ.
professionalism through our cops. We do this very well in New York City.
Indeed you do. Thank you so much, Chief Schell. Always good to see you. Thank you for what you do to keep the people of New York City safe. And as you say, 5,000 protests of this kind in the past year or so since October 7th is extraordinary. Thank you so much, Chief. Good to see you.
Have a great day, Martha.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Interesting. Not one mention of the name of the organization.